Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming early this Saturday. We're so excited to be here with you. I am Andalusia Soloff. I am a multimedia freelance journalist based in Mexico City. I am originally from New York City, but I've been living and working in Mexico for the past 11 years. And I am the founder and the general coordinator of Frontline Freelance Mexico, which is a journalist organization of over 200 independent journalists all across the country, where together we have united to combat the precarity and insecurity that exist in Mexico and that we face as freelancers in one of the most dangerous countries in the entire world to be a journalist. And here I have with me two members of our organization, Frontline Freelance Mexico. Alicia Fernandez is an audiovisual journalist and storyteller from the U.S.-Mexico border city, Ciudad Juarez. And she specializes for the past 20 years in producing multimedia stories about migration, gender violence, and security issues for national and international media outlets. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you.
And over there, we have Vania Pigeonutt, who is an award-winning journalist from Guerrero, Mexico, which is one of the most violent and poorest states in Mexico. She is the founder of the independent media outlet Amapola Periodismo Transgresor, or PAPI Transgressive Journalism, and has specialized in reporting on freedom of expression and organized crimes as it relates to extortion, disappearances, and displacement. So today, our topic, we were talking about the role of fixers, and I first wanted to share an anecdote where in Frontline Freelance Mexico, we're an organization that launched 3 years ago, and when we launched, we held a series of professionalization workshops. And at those workshops, we had 23 journalists from all across the country, from some of the most dangerous states, Tamaulipas, Michoacán, Veracruz, Guerrero. And we asked them in a fixture workshop how many of them had worked as fixers, and only a handful raised their hands. And then when we explained what a fixer was and what a fixer does, and then we asked again how many of them had worked as fixers, almost every single journalist raised their hand. So that meant that they were all working as fixers without knowing that that was a job that you could be paid for and recognized for. And so that was when we started focusing on what really is the role of fixers, and especially fixers in Mexico. So here we have two experts here to share with us their stories. So what is a fixer, and how did both of you start working as fixers?
Well, hi, hello. Thank you so much for being here. Well, usually a fixer is a person or a local journalist who is expert in their fields and who facilitates the conditions for foreign correspondents to work in certain territories. Most of it are hostile environments. And well, you can become a translator, you can look for accommodations, you can give a context to the journalists that are there, that are coming to work there. You can also share contacts, and well, everything the correspondent needs to be on the field. And well, I started working around 2009 in Ciudad Juarez. I'm from the border between Ciudad Juarez and Ciudad Juarez, in the border between Mexico and USA. And well, the context at the time was hard. There was a situation that emerged after the president at that time called a war against drugs. So Ciudad Juarez became the epicenter of this war. So there were a lot of kidnappings, extortions. And well, in this context, I was working at the night shift in a local newspaper called El Diario de Juárez. The night shift meant that I was covering all this violence that were happening daily. No, I was on the breaking news all the time. So once I received like my first. Well, it was like so hard that people goes to Juarez to document what was happening there. And in this context, I received an email for a photographer. Well, a friend of mine, photographer, just talked about me to another colleagues, photographers. And I received an email asking me to be a fixer. And to be honest, I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, to be a fixer. And I said like, well, I'm young, but at that time I was younger. So I just asked to my more experimented colleagues to know what to do, because he was like a photographer that I really admire, and I want to answer this email with in a professional way. So I give him a date rate. I asked him what he needed for the city. And then, well, I worked with him, and it was the beginning of knowing a lot of persons that I've been working on.
In my case, I started as a fixer without receiving payment in 2014, when in Guerrero, 43 students were disappeared by police and criminals in where happened maybe the most emblematic case about disappearance in my country recently, the Ayotzinapa case, maybe, do you know? And in this year, it was one of the most violent years for the state and also in my country in general. In the context, there were clandestine rapes and a crisis of forced disappearance accentuated in the south in a country of almost 100,000 disappeared since 1970s for here. And correspondents from major media outlets were interested in covering that crisis and sought me out because they knew me through my articles, because as Alicia, I was a local reporter first, and my texts about poppy fields and the families, cultivation, and these topics. Being a fixer for me has had to do with my generosity, first of all, with my own need to adequately explain Guerrero. It is a commitment to the truth, but in the midst of my commitments as a person and a journalist, there is a job that must be paid for me, and that makes my own intellectual work as a journalist invisible. Because by guiding others, in most cases, it makes you a ghost of you on bylines. And it's my experience as a fixer. And then the other story maybe is with payment, but it's the same situation. Inequality, but in two ways. It's invisible, my own work, and the awards, etc. It's only for other colleagues, foreigner colleagues, the majority times.
What have been the main challenges for both of you as working as a fixer in Mexico and in two of the most violent areas within an already very violent country?
Definitely, I think one of the most important things that you have to take care of is the security. Yeah. When you are working on these environments, there are like very instability on these places, so you cannot have all the control of what can happen. For example, in recent years, about 2 years ago, I wasn't working as a fixer, but I was working as a researcher and interviewer, and we have a fixer with us. We don't need it, but we were a big crowd. I was we were working in Ciudad Juarez, but we had a big crowd, and they felt more secure with a fixer. Even I know a lot the city. When we did an interview, we were researching about feminicides, and when we finished that interview, we started to hear some shootings. So there were some people shooting outside the building that we were working on. So, well, it is something that you cannot control. We have a big team that had gone from Mexico City to Ciudad Juarez, and many of that people never have been there. So, well, my work there, I have to also talk with them and try to keep them calm, because they were so scared about what happened, and they don't know exactly what was what we were living. If there was an attack directed to us, it was an attack to the offices, it was an attack for somebody there. But we were looking for what was, but in the middle, there were a lot of uncertainty. So I have another experiences before as a fixer. For example, once I went with the director of an ONG, and we were in the border, and there were some smugglers that just came to us. And well, at that moment, I had to talk with them, explain them that we don't want to expose them, that we were there just like to see the border and how it works. So definitely, even we can do some risk assessment, even though we know the field, there's something that you can't control. So definitely, for me, security is one of the main things or the main challenges for the team that you are working on.
Yeah, in my case, the territory is the first challenge, because in Guerrero are my friends, my family lives in my state. Explain that although Guerrero is not Syria, it's our challenge, because we are in a low-intensified war, but it's not the war. Sometimes it's very easy for foreign colleagues to think of going to some places like Chilapa or Iguala, small cities with enormous crises, because they feel that they are calm, colorful, but they don't understand the codes. In Mexico, what is not seen only at crime scenes, in murders, it's live in our daily lives. We are extorted in habits, one political corruption with its links to organized crime have us kidnapped, but colleagues only see folklore sometimes. Also, they come for a day and stay here. In Guerrero in this case, and this is a big challenge because you need to explain slow and very well all the codes, and not always the colleagues understand very well these codes. And in the final product, our risks, it's visible because they say goodbye. In my case, I still working in Guerrero, and this part, in my case, has been very hard part.
Right, there's no way to guarantee their security in an unsecure place, right? So what have been additional challenges for both of you being female fixers? We hear, I also have worked a lot as a fixer, and it may seem normal that in front of you there are 3 women that work as fixers, but we are definitely the minority in Mexico and the minority in the world, that there are very few female fixers. So what are additional challenges working as a female fixer?
Well, definitely, Definitely, the challenges to being a woman, a fixer woman, is similar to being a photographer woman or to be a videographer woman. As you said, we are the minority, and we have to deal with some rejection maybe at the beginning because there are just a few places for women to be on that fields. I think something that I have noticed along all my career as journalist and as a photojournalist or visual journalist, but also as a fixer, is that I have fixed most of the time for men. I have worked most of the time for men. I guess just maybe I remember like 3 times working with some female organization like International Women Foundation, some Al Jazeera team of a woman, and one photographer from Magnum, an independent photographer, and that were the only times that I have worked for women. The other times, and most of the times, and the major parts, are working for men. So that's how I notice that inequality on the field.
Yeah, it's an enormous question because as a woman, the challenge is also enormous. I have an anecdote in this sense. I once worked with a colleague, only a colleague from a very important media outlet, who tell all time that a woman could take him to one of the most dangerous towns in my state. It's Ayagualtempa, which is also an indigenous area where no white men would enter without someone putting. Before hiring me, he asked other male colleagues why a woman would wear it. In his investigation, he discovered that I was, despite my age, an expert in organized crime who had worked with families more than a decade. No one like me could guide him better. He had hard time, and all the time he was hungry because my English was more basic, in fact. It's a complicated situation because you always have to prove, and it's very hard because I'm a woman, I'm a young woman, expert woman in difficult subjects, and this is not only because she's a woman, it also happens to other fellow fixers who often pragmatize the situation and are satisfied. They are paid well because they already know that it's difficult to obtain credits and adequate recognition. It's a big challenge. And maybe right now it's different because I've had the opportunity to have awards, and my own bylines are in big media outlets, but it's for me a very big challenge in these times.
Thank you to both of you. And how do you feel about the work that has been published that you both were fixers for?
Well, I have known like a lot of great persons, and who I've been working on, and that will definitely have improved my skills, my way of seeing the world. But sometimes I feel like I was given all these stories that I couldn't develop in my own city because maybe I was working from one crime scene to another crime scene. It was like so exhausting. It was so physically and emotionally exhausting. And you don't have the time to develop these stories, but you find it. And then there's a team that comes and have more time to do it and more resources, and they'll do it. And you have this sensation of give these stories not development and just let them go. And with no recognition, no credits. And it was like, I love it, I like it, but I don't know, I feel a little bit melancholic about it. I don't know why. But also, I found it as a responsibility. When you are somebody like a connection with some reality, and this is your local reality, that is that reality that you are involved because it's your home city where your family is, where your friends is. You notice that many of the things that you are saying about your city, it has an impact of what the city becomes. So I don't know if you have heard before about Ciudad Juárez, but it was named 2 times, 2 years, 2010 and 2011, like the most dangerous city of the world. And there were many people just doing one part of the story, like the words part of the story, and definitely this is something that is a reality. But there's another part of the resilience of people that trying to fight back, that trying to survive, and. I thought, from me, it was very important that when I was like working with foreign teams, that people will know that there were 2 parts of this, because everything that is showing outside of our city in the big outlets, for example, has an impact. For example, the economy went down and nobody want to go to Ciudad Juárez. So people get run out of work. So it has an impact directly on you too, as a as a journalist, as a worker, because people run out of work, you know. So I think this is also a big responsibility if you are giving this context to people that try to understand what is happening in the place that you are an expert.
Yes, in my case, in 2 sense, because in one hand, it's important experience sharing this knowledge with other international colleagues, foreign colleagues, because it's important. The situation is not only in my country. For me, it's very big important, and I have good experience also with other colleagues. But as Alicia saying, in my case, the experience is hard when the big themes are exposed in bad way in the final product. Not, it's so hard when I trying to explain the point very well, and when I say watching in the TV the narrative or the guidelines in bad sense, it's oh my God. But in other part, it's important. The situation is in the world. It's a good experience because the big teams. I have a compromise with the big teams, disappears or other crimes. And this part is really important because in the big media outlets, to have this news is very important for my country, for my family, for our work as a journalist, local reporters. And in my case, it's 2 feelings, not always. Every day, all the time, and okay, hello, colleague, welcome to my country, but carefully with the subjects, because it's my life, it's my risk, and it's important understanding.
Why do you say that, Vanya? Why is it your life and you have the risk? Why, as a fixer, do you and Alicia and all of the local fixers, why is there more risk to you as a fixer based on what the journalists are doing?
Because I am the place. First of all, it's complicated. Return to the same dangerous city or town, a small town. One other colleagues only can be in this town once, and in my case, I have come back many times. And this is complicated because the expose is a lot in my case, in other colleagues not. And as a local journalist, to have to explain to the victims, oh, sorry, I need again other interview in this same way, and it's hard because it's the families are my sources too, and it's my compromise with them.
And many times, the journalists, sometimes I call them parachuting journalists, there's a Facebook group even called the Vulture Club, referencing that some refer to journalists that come from far away as vultures. I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying that's something that exists. How is this dynamic when they come for just 3 days, but these are sources you have been both working for over a decade, for 20 years to build? How does that feel that you are working so long on these stories?
Alicia, or wherever.
Well, this is part where I was talking before. Well, do you find that there were some sources that you wanted to take care of? There were another sources that are more complicated. For example, if you are related with crime and all the stuff, you cannot have you cannot have all the control. There are other sources that are more sensible, like the families of the victims and all that stuff. And for us, I think it's important that people that comes from another places treat this person with dignity and all that stuff. I was very usually when I've been lucky. Usually I've been working with great teams, but I have worked also. I have had some experiences that have made me think about this role and how to be aware of who I'm working on. So I actually have rejected some works because I don't feel like comfortable working with some people that had some reputation or something, because, well, I have had some interesting experiences. For example, once a producer asked me to use a mask to go to the crime scenes, so he could do like a show with me, so being like a character of going to the crime scenes, and I was like,
The
no.
photographers, as the reality show?
Yeah, they want to do as a reality show with me. And it was disgusting. He asked me for an interview. I didn't know him, and he asked me if there was something good that my partners were murdered. It was like, no, there's nothing good about it.
So do you want to add anything, Vania?
Maybe only add, it's in the same, no? When you have feelings for the families, it's not easy only share this contact. It's a compromise again, not? And maybe the colleagues, why not? It's only a man, it's only a woman, it's only, etc. In my case, I have to explain slow and carefully, and I will share with you my contact, but you must understand the situation. It's complex because it's like not relatives, but it's close. The people is close to me, and for this part, it's carefully. The situation is when you made an interview with these families, the risk is for all of us. And for this part, sharing contacts or sources, It's a big question. Always I think about, okay, who is the guy? Who is the colleague? Why the colleague wanna my contact? I question myself always after sharing in easy way.
Going back to Alicia, that you were sharing that you've had some bad experiences, and one of these you were talking about with me, and out of this, there's born a project. So can you share with me and share here with the audience, how was the project Fixing Journalism born? How did it come about?
Yeah, well, I think I was very interested. I have learned that the local people is like very, very important, and I feel like very, very, very identified because I'm local now. I'm moving more and working with international media, but I feel very, very, very identified with the local colleagues, and also they are my friends, and I know a lot of local people all around Mexico, and I love it. And someday, well, there were a situation. There was in Ciudad Juarez, two colleagues from an international media arrived to the place, and when they were interviewing some member of the crime, of some crime member, they had a shooting, and somebody killed in front of them this person. So the fixer that came with them was from another zone of Mexico, different from the place. So everybody started to talk about the role of that fixer, if he knew the field good, if they were just in a bad moment, or just but how did they were in that situation, no? So we started to talk about it, and there was a there was a debate about it, and everybody were talking a little bit about it, and the role of fixer. So in that, I started to talk with Andalusia, and we were like, oh yeah, you have been fixer, yeah, I'm been fixer too. Oh, see, well, I have experimented these situations. What have you experimented? And I just, well, I told her about some good experiences or different experiences, and there were some experiences that took the attention to Andalusia. And I can say, and we said, like, after I told her this, we started like, we must do a project together. But well, the situation was that I was working with a guy from Europe that just went to Ciudad Juarez. No, he was doing a book about crime, about violence, and he asked me to interview some drug dealers, some drug sellers, some wives of the drug sellers, and I get some contact because when you are local, you have these branches that can help you to get to those contacts, even if it is not your direct environment, even if it is not your, it is not your, you are not focused on it, or you are not part of it. You can get to these places because, or to these places, or to these persons, because you know people since all your life, no? So maybe your high school partner was something that became, I don't know, that just start to do something different, like, I don't know, being involved into the crime or whatever, and then you trust a little bit on him because you know that this person knows you, and you kind of okay, let's do this. Can I make you an interview? Yes, and then you introduce this person to the correspondent that is coming, no? So I bring these contacts to this correspondent, and he did his interview. And after that, we went like at the bar at night after the work. We were like talking, like, how was it? And he said to me like, I want to interview once again this dealer. And so like, no, it can be possible. It was only one time, you know, like, it's not that I'm gonna call her, oh, hi, hello, how are you? What are you doing? No, I can't, I can talk to him again, as actually he's living in a very dangerous neighborhood, and it was like, it is impossible. You had your time, you must take advantage of it. So that was what it is. And he said, like, really? I need to make an interview tomorrow. And he took a 100 $100 bill, and he put me like, don't you want more? And it was like, really? You are treating me like a starving dog? It was so, no, it was so sad for me. Like, no. So I had to take the bill and put it into the glass, you know, because no one deserves to be treated like if it was your servant or something like that, you know. So that makes me think a lot about the role of the fixer. We shared this experience, and we said, like, well, we must do this project trying to professionalize fixers, because many of them doesn't know. In Mexico, it's very difficult to have workshops to access, because there's no enough resources to do it, you know. So I think it was important for many people to know how to be better, how to improve their possibilities of working with international media. But we also think that we must talk to the people that hire the fixers in the places, and try to give them like some good practices about how it's fair to talk to work with a colleague on an equal balance, on an equal situation.
Thank you, Alicia. Yes, I had the same reaction as many of you to Alicia's story, and that was when we were like, we have to do something to change this. So thanks to the Resilience Fund with the Global Initiative on Transnational Organized Crime, we were able to get some funding and do, as she mentioned, do training. So first we did a series of workshops last year with journalists all across the country. And one of the good things about the pandemic was that people got a little used to doing online workshops. So we actually had a journalist who was from Badiraguato.
Badiraguato.
That's the town from where a small town from where Chapo Guzman is from, and we actually had a journalist who was born and raised in that town who participated in our workshops, and from many other dangerous parts of Mexico. And the first series of workshops were of local journalists who had worked as fixers without realizing that they had worked as fixers. Many were from indigenous communities, others were from dangerous communities. And so from that, we did a series of professionalization workshops so that they could actually be remunerated as a fixer. Because it's important to mention, a fixer in Mexico, they can make in one day what they make in an entire month as a working journalist. Starting salaries for working journalists, especially in smaller towns, is $200 a month. And Mexico is not that cheap as you might think it is. So $200 a month is like barely livable, especially if you have a family. So that's was one of the things of teaching them how to also properly charge. And then we did another series of workshops that was aimed at fixers, that helping them become local producers or collaborating journalists, and also to get better credits, and also learn how to pitch to international outlets so that they're not always just hired as a fixer. So we don't have all that much time, but we're gonna do a quick presentation here. This is the guide that we make, which you all have a copy of, and if anyone wants an extra copy, you could come up here and we give you one. And This is just about, it's a guide for when you're hiring a fixer or local producer in Mexico. Here we're just talking about the importance. And in the guide, we talk about what it's like reporting in Mexico, the differences between being a fixer and local. The differences between being a fixer and local producer, some security recommendations, how to diminish risk, the importance of sources, as they both already talked about, pre-production and logistics, payment and expenses, and also fair credits. And this is just, a lot of times people come to Mexico and they just think like, oh, I want to report on crime. Can I go to these 5 cities? And you're like, Mexico's a really big country. You can't, and like they have like no idea. So I actually shared a personal experience where I worked for a journalist, and I actually was like, he didn't know what he wanted. He was like, I just want to report on everything you've reported on already. And I was like, then I'm your producer, I'm not your fixer. And he agreed, and then I was his producer. Whereas I have also worked for journalists that have come and they know everything they want to do. They know exactly the issue, they know who they want to interview, and they just want you to help contact them. So I felt that was a fairer fixer relationship, but we outlined really the differences between a fixer and a local producer, and also if you are hiring a local producer, you need to pay them more, and then a whole bunch of security recommendations, which we already heard about, and just going off of what Alicia said, where they just think you could go back and interview a member of a criminal organization. Sometimes journalists will come and they'll be like, hey, I have an hour to kill. Can you just get a fentanyl lab for me? And so that was a story we have here that really they think it's like you just snap your fingers, and that criminals will appear and let you film them. And one thing that happens a lot in Mexico is they see stories where criminals are doing that and think that we can get that, but they've been paid to do that. That is, a lot of fixers have relationships with criminal organizations and pay them for that access. So we also talk about that. And then we are a member of the ACOS Alliance, a culture of safety, which has had many workshops here. And it's about, the ACOS Alliance focuses on how media outlets and organizations should really protect their freelance journalists as if they were staff journalists when they're on assignments. And then also, it's important that the ACOS Alliance also, that recognizing this for fixers, not just the freelance journalists, but also recognizing that the media outlets need to take care of the fixers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, pero hay más. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The sources we went through, the difficulty of crime beat reporting, mm-hmm. And this is a very important one.
Yeah, because in my experience, when I research about the fixing in Mexico, I have the big opportunity to talk with 35 colleagues have been fixers, and the respective, it's important because it has to be taken to another level. Raise complexity. Colleagues often forget that they are being guided by an expert journalist, dreaming of her own stories. In my case, despite the fact that I have published it in media such as the New York Times, for example. And this part is important because maybe I think it's the other step for to be this activity with more carefully, and it's important sharing the knowledge and to have more complex products, finally products, maybe in the big media outlets. And it's for my colleagues, the part most important is the payments for our lives, for our situation. But it's important the credits, because when you and your name is in a big media outlet, you can the opportunity to have other big opportunities, and the risk in our country for to be a journalist, it's very big. For example, in this moment, 8 colleagues was murdered only in this year. And for this reason, it's the mindness has to change in all the general sense, not only for the big media outlets. It's a personal situation. It's myself. I think about this situation, but other colleagues, in my opinion, has to considerate that point. And the inequality relationships must be different, and the respect is to understanding the context, the complex context, and in Mexico case, the fixer almost always is become, it's journalist first and then fixer. And if the colleagues don't be able to understand this situation, maybe the risk for us could be high, no? And for me, the respect is sharing with this big explication.
Well, we encourage you to read our guide, and we also have this site where we can, when we are we are constructing a website that will have all this. Well, Vania became part of the project because we wanted to talk with all these colleagues around Mexico. So we asked Vania to talk with them, and we have all these experiences, and we are going to place all these experiences in this website. By now, it's under construction, it's coming soon, but you can download the guide that we are presenting today. And well,
and passing it back to Vania. So she interviewed over 35 colleagues of ours, many that are members of Frontline Freelance Mexico and other journalists that work as fixers. And Vania, if you could just, we only have a few more minutes, so maybe just one or two things you learned from talking with so many colleagues that worked as fixers.
Principally, the necessity to understand the context and the precarious life in Mexico to be journalist. It's my highlight in this project because it's important to have better relationships, and not only better, powerful, because if we are together, it's the works could be better always. It's all.
Yeah, well, I must say that we've been sharing this this knowledge that we have acquired by our own experiences, but also by talking with other colleagues, and we have actually shared with some people from other countries, like Amira, like is right here, and well, we find out that they feel identified about the feelings to being a fixer. So, do you think that we believe that is possible? There are some projects, for example, in Latin America, that are working together. People is working together, sharing the bylines, working as a contributor and on an equal status level. And I think this is a win-win because for me, I think it's very important. It's not that correspondence should not go to any places. Of course not. I think we should have this global vision. And one, for example, something that I really experimented is that I was very enriched by other visions, because when you are local, you are like really involved in your context. And when you have this vision from another people that has another language, that come from another culture, you can see some things that maybe you are very accustomed to it, you know, you normalize. And And it's not that there are not these correspondents, it's that there are more equality and journalists being treated as journalists, not as, and we think that this global vision plus the local expertise could do better work and could do a better journalism for everyone. So,
Well, we have a little to wrap up, but we wanted to know, we can't pass you a microphone because of COVID regulations, but Amira, we met her right as we were traveling on the bus here, and we instantly became friends, realizing that we share a lot in common. Does this seem a similar situation to what you have lived in Yemen working as a fixer?
Well, I don't know if everybody knows there is war in Yemen.
Ah,
Oh, look, a microphone. Ooh.
thanks a lot.
could you please?
Oh, yeah, come.
Could you
Here.
please?
You
come?
wanna?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I don't know if everybody knows that Yemen is in war since 8 years, and what happened during these years, working as a fixer, endanger not only me as a fixer, but my contacts that end up in prison and who was by the end needed to flee Yemen as I did. And honestly, it was because we shared contact, and we in an honest moment said, those contacts can make things happen, and they contacted the contacts, and they get what they wanted to get, and everybody get in trouble.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amira.
Thank you. So I have one final final question. Mm-hmm.
But the
Okay.
time-
Okay. No, we have one. We
Say
have, he said,
final.
a few more minutes. One final question,
Okay.
which is, should the role of the fixer be abolished?
Wow. Well, do you have another hour? No. Well, not all the fixers are journalists. So I know some people that are happy to be fixers. There are lawyers, there are activists, they have another
Profile.
jobs different for being a journalist. I don't know, some of them will be good, but more than 90% or 95% or whatever, there are local journalists who would like to have more opportunities to be exposed. Maybe you don't want the credits because you are working on a dangerous case, but at least to have the opportunity to choose if you could be part of the credits or your work could be shown, or the collaboration that exists between both could be exposed. So maybe you could access to better works, to more jobs. I think will be something good for the local journalist that maybe doesn't have so much resources to go to the big universities, to stay to go to the first world, what is called first world colleges, or attend to these workshops. But there's a lot of valuable persons, there's a lot of expert persons, very professional persons that maybe deserve these credits so they can access to better jobs, to better assignments, and to be exposed. For example, I was like always dreaming about seeing my work as a photographer, as a videographer in the big media outlets. So I'm happy to help, but also I will be happy to, I don't know, to make my dream come true, for example. So, well, that's what I think.
Yeah, this inequality must change. As Alicia, my dream is in the same, because I'm a writer or not. And I would love that as if it had happened to me, maybe it happened for other local colleagues, and it's my dream. For example, I was a fixer 3 years ago, and then the same colleague invited me to write with this big media outlet project, etc. And not only for the journalism, it's in other aspects in the life because academics and universities, etc., has interesting in our job, in our work, and it's important to have two ways always. Alicia told us a part important, when maybe the risk is high, you don't need a credit. You need a good payment. But in other way, maybe you need a credit, and this situation, it's for me to be, must be very clear, because the sharing, the interchange, the feedback was very important for journalists in general, and the powerful for the people to have this important journalism, collaborative journalism. It's other level for understanding the painful on the world, the situations on risk in every country, in every city, in every small town, and became a situation better for all, and the society, first of all.
Well, thank you so much to Vania and Alicia.
Thank you.
And we feel free, if you want to get another guide, you could come up. And also, if you have any questions for us, we will be outside. And we hope in the coming years we will both be expanding these kinds of workshops and guides across Latin America and perhaps other parts of the world. And it's called Fixing Journalism because it's exactly what Vania talked about at the end. We want to improve this relationship in journalism. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, International Journalist Festival.